But first, its wildlife is not for sale. That's the message Kenya is trying to drive forward as it takes a stand against poaching and the illegal ivory trade. Authorities there burned more than 100 tons of elephant ivory and rhino horns in an enormous bonfire. It was the biggest stockpile of ivory ever destroyed, representing more than 8,000 animals from over 3 decades of illegal poaching. With a street value of more than $150 million, some argued the ivory should have been sold, with the money put towards conservation. Kenya's president dismissed those calls, pledging more action to save his country's endangered wildlife.
There are indications that our elephant numbers are recovering. That is only the more reason to aggressively protect the survivors of this horrific war and to do all that we can to ensure that never again will our elephants be attacked in this way.
Kenya is seeking a total global ivory ban at September's International Wildlife Trade Conference in South Africa. Well, the two biggest markets for poached ivory have joined forces in an attempt to combat it. China and the United States announced late last year their plan to completely ban the import and export of the material. China has also taken previous steps toward a ban, announcing 1 year ago its decision to also phase out the legal domestic manufacturing and sale of ivory products. Both China and the US also said they would work with other countries to combat wildlife trafficking. In January, the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region of China announced a ban on the import and export of ivory, which analysts say is important since much of the ivory in the Chinese mainland is smuggled through Hong Kong. No word yet on when the bans would go into effect. Well, states in the US are making efforts to stem the supply by imposing bans of their own. California is the latest to jump on the bandwagon. But as CCTV's Mei Li reports, opponents aren't going down without a fight.
This is the oldest item in the collection.
Godfrey Harris lost count of how many antique ivory pieces he owns.
This is a Chinese medicine lady.
Harris started collecting as a child nearly 70 years ago. Some of his pieces date back centuries, making them quite valuable. But starting July 1st, a new California bill, AB 96, will go into effect, and it bans anyone from buying or selling ivory or rhino horn. Now, this closes a loophole that allowed the trade of ivory as long as it was obtained before 1977.
The ban is unnecessary. The ban is an overreaction on the part of our state legislators to heavy pressure from the animal rights groups.
Harris, along with other collectors and dealers of ivory in California, says the ban is punishing people who acquired their pre-1977 items legally by making their precious artifacts worthless. The wildlife and conservation groups say the growing scourge of poaching in Africa and Asia calls for changes in human behavior.
We have to have a different relationship with the way that we consume wildlife in the world. The reality is that it may have been okay for us to have people who collected ivory 100 years ago because it was a very small group of people and elephants were not facing the kind of pressures they face today.
Poaching statistics are staggering. According to multiple wildlife and scientific groups, 96 elephants are poached every day. That's one every 15 minutes. On April 30th, the tusks of 6,500 elephants and the horns of nearly 350 rhinos were torched in Kenya, sending a dramatic anti-poaching message. But Godfrey Harris, who is also executive director of the Ivory Education Institute, vehemently disputes poaching figures. Do you think this number of 96 elephants being killed every day is just made up?
Yes.
So are you saying this is some sort of conspiracy then?
No, it's a very good way for the animal rights groups who get a lot of sympathy for seeing elephant calves looking for their mothers who have been slaughtered for their tusks as a fundraising device.
Harris's Ivory Education Institute is challenging the ban by suing the state of California, a major hub for ivory trade. In the meantime, the avid collector has an answer for what he and others will do with their collectibles. So, Godfrey, this piece, after the ban, you're not going to have much value in this.
Sure. You've heard of a black market?
Mei Li, CCTV, Los Angeles.